Hello everyone, myself Priya Menezes from the Department of Anatomy, Yenepoya Medical College. I will be enumerating on the classification of human bones. The specific learning objectives for the video is to learn the different types of bones with examples, to enumerate the features of pneumatic bone. Skeleton includes bone and cartilages, and the bones form the main supporting network. It strengthens the body and supports the body. Human body consists of 206 bones. Now what is the structure of the bone? It is a hard, calcified, highly vascular, dynamic connective tissue. What are the major functions of the bone? It provides shape and support to the body. It provides the muscular attachments. It acts as levers. It protects our internal organs and surrounds the organs. One more important feature of the bone is it takes part in erythropoiesis, that is, production of blood cells occurs in the bone marrow. And it acts as an important storage part of minerals. The major of our bones is comprised of the cells and the collagen fibers, that is where the organic part of the bone is, and the inorganic part of the bone is formed of the mineral salts such as calcium. Now let us move on to the classification of the bones. Based on the different parameters, the bones are classified as below: according to their shape, according to the development, according to the region where they are present in our body, according to their structure, according to the microscopic appearance. Now let us move on to the classification of bones according to the shape. We can classify them as below: long bones, short bones, flat bones, irregular bones, pneumatic bones, sesamoid bones, and lastly accessory bones. Now let us see each bone with example. Firstly, long bones. These bones are longer in shape. They are a typical long bones in our body. Now what are the important features of a typical long bone? I can show you with example. For example, I show you here, this is the femur. So this typical long bone, it has a shaft with two ends. The shaft is called as diaphysis and the ends are called as epiphysis. It will have a central medullary cavity. Outermost covering is called as periosteum. It has a nutrient foramen. There will be a foramen which shows the direction of the growing end of the bone. What is the best example for the long bone is humerus, ulna and femur. This is what I am holding in my hand. This is the femur. The next type of long bone is a short long bones. These are kind of a long bones, but they are shorter in shape. What is the best example for the short long bones is the metatarsals, metacarpals and the phalanges. The metacarpals which are present in our hand, metatarsals are present in the foot, and the phalanges which are the ends. Now what is the difference between long bones and short long bones? Short long bones are miniature bones. Best examples I told you are the metacarpals and the metatarsals. They have only one epiphysis, so they will have only one end, not two epiphyses. Third type of long bone is a modified long bone. It is a long bone, but it is modified a little. The best example for this is clavicle. Clavicle does not have a medullary cavity. It transmits the weight from the appendicular skeleton to the axial skeleton. So we know that our clavicle is present here at our neck. So it transmits the weight from the axial to the appendicular skeleton. That is the best example for modified long bone. Second type of bone is short bones. Now these are shorter in shape. Their shape can be any of it: cuboid, trapezoid or cuneiform. Now what are the best examples of short bones are the carpals and tarsals bones. What we see here, the shorter bones which are present again in the hands and the foot. The carpals and the tarsal bones are the best examples for short bones. Third type is flat bones. These are flatter in shape. We can see here they are flatter in shape. They are mainly present in the skull. Skull has different type of bones which are flatter in shape. I can name them as frontal, parietal, occipital and temporal. The skull bones, they are all flat bones. The second best example we can give for flat bones are the ribs. The rib cage is made up of flat bones. The ribs, they are also flatter in shape. Sternum, which is a midline structure, sternum, it is again flatter in shape, and the scapula, which is also a type of a flat bone. We can see here in the picture again what the sternum and the scapula is. The fourth type of bone is the irregular bone. Now these bones are basically the one which are present in the hip bone, bones in the base of the skull, sphenoid and the vertebrae. The entire vertebral column is made up of different type of vertebrae. There are 33 vertebrae and these are all irregular in shape. So they come under the category of irregular bones. Here I can show you one type of a vertebrae. So it is irregular in shape. Next type is pneumatic bones. The word pneumatic itself says pneumatic is hollow or air-filled cavities. Now they have air-filled cavities. Now what is it in detail if you have to know about the pneumatic bones? It contains large air spaces which are lined by epithelium. Now certain of the skull bones have this hollow cavity which make the skull lighter. That is the major important function of the pneumatic bones. Now they help in resonance of the voice. They act as air conditioning chambers and improves the quality of the voice. Now what are the pneumatic bones we have in the skull? We have the sphenoid bone, ethmoid bone and the frontal bone, as well as the bone of the face, that is a maxilla. It is also having the air cavity which will help in the resonance of the voice and it also makes the skull lighter. Sixth type is the sesamoid bone. The word sesame itself says sesame means seed like. These are small bones. Now these are developing in the tendons of the muscles. So these are the bony nodules, they develop in the tendons of the muscles. So this bone doesn't have a periosteum, it doesn't have a medullary cavity. So this is the best example and they ossify after birth, not before birth. They ossify after birth. What is the best example? You can see here, this is the patella. This develops in the tendon of quadriceps femoris. The last type of long bone, the last type of bone is the accessory bones. Now what are these? They are accessory, they are either present or they may not be present. They are called as sutural or vermian bones. Now they are basically present at the sutures of the skull. Now what we can see here, these are the sutures of the skull where the one or two bones are connected with. So they can be presented at the sutures. They may be present or they may not be present and they are mistaken for fractures most of the times. So according to the shape, we have classified the bones differently. Now let's move on to the developmental classification. So as the bone develops, it either develops membranous or cartilaginously, or it will have partly a membranous or a cartilaginous development. Now what are the type of the bones which develop in the membrane? Membranous development. Now the bones we see in the skull, frontal and the parietal bones are mainly the membranous bone, that is the best example. What are the cartilaginous bones? Majorly the bones of the limbs, upper limbs and the lower limbs, these are the cartilaginous bones. We can see the humerus, the femur, these are all the cartilaginous bones. Most of our bones are cartilaginous bones. Then third example is the membrano-cartilaginous bone. They are partly developed from the membrane and the cartilage. So the best example we can give for this as the ribs. So they will have a sternal end, they will have a cartilaginous end as well and the membranous end as well. So that is the best example for membrano-cartilaginous bones. Then let's move to the regional classification. Depend on where the bones are present in our body. So they can either be present at the axial skeleton in the center, throughout the axial skeleton or the appendicular skeleton. Appendicular skeleton are the one which are comprising of the upper limbs and the lower limbs which are joining with the axial skeleton. So the bones which are present in the axis of the body are called as axial skeleton bones and the bones which are present in the appendicular aspect are the appendicular bones. Lastly, we have the structural classification. Now we have a cut section of any bone. We take a cut section of any long bone. We see structurally there are different types we can identify and different parts we can name. So what do we see exactly? When we take a cut section of a bone, we can see two types there as you can see in the picture. compact bone and the cancellous bone. Now the outermost part is called as the compact bone. It is rigid, hard part of the bone, and it is having the outermost covering of the bone. The second part which you can see in the inner, which is made up of the lamellae, you can see those openings in the inner aspect of the bone, they are called as, that part is called as the cancellous bone. What are the features we have to know in the compact bone? If you see, this is the cut section of the bone, you can see the outermost aspect you see is the compact bone, and this compact bone section, in the transverse section, there are some typical features which we need to know. This is made up of a Haversian system. Now in the center where you see the blood vessels passing by, now this Haversian system is comprised of a circular shape arrangement. In the center we see the Haversian canal, which is surrounded by the lamellae. So concentric lamellae we can see layer by layer, so it forms a circular arrangement. So this Haversian canal along with the circular arrangement of lamellae comprises of one Haversian system. So the lamellae, what do these lamellae have? These lamellae have the osteocytes which are located in the lacunae. So every lacunae will have the bone forming cells called as osteocytes. These keep growing and the development of bone continues there as the lamellae get depositing one by one. So you can see there in the center there is a Haversian canal where the blood vessels are passing by and where the bone gets its blood supply, surrounded by the layer or sheet of lamellae which constitute of the osteocytes located within the lacunae. Now there are different types of lamellae you can see here. There are interstitial lamellae. Now between one or two or three Haversian system, in between you can see some lamellae. These are called as interstitial lamellae, and the outermost layer you can see 2 to 3 layers there surrounded by the which are surrounding the bone, they are called as the circumferential lamellae. So a cut section or a transverse section of a compact bone comprises of a Haversian system which has a Haversian canal surrounded by layer of lamellae which constitute the osteocytes in the lacunae. And these lamellae are of 3 types. One is the circumferential type, interstitial type, and the one which is concentric type around the Haversian canal itself. So this is another picture which clearly tells us the blood supply to the bone, and where the bone marrow is present, there is where the medullary cavity is filled by the bone marrow, and where the important function happens is the production of blood cells. All the blood cells are produced in here where the bone marrow is present. So this is where we come to the end of the video. I hope you have clearly understood the different type of bones along with the examples. See you. Thank you.